And so it's all kind of fitting into place. Weird that it's all happening during the lockdown, but anyway, there you are. Nothing's ever predictable in Formula One. Carlos Sainz to Ferrari. Very good move for Ferrari. Brilliant for Sainz, of course. Kind of reminds me of the whole Fiat influence thing we have at Ferrari these days. Because if you were thinking about the Fiat board and you said to them, right, you got this range of drivers, who would you like to see? Carlos Sainz is definitely the sort of driver they would opt for because of his father, because of the whole feel of the Sainz family in Spain and the whole thing. Very Fiat orientated, Fiat corporate, I would say. And Carlos has done a very good job of being, you know, Mr. Nice Guy, really. As I said in the other video, I think there'll be a bit more car damage with Carlos. Last year he didn't crash much, but I think he did that by coming back a little bit on his overall pace. I think he's a reactive driver predominantly. Obviously he's got some subtle touch and feel, but in order to be consistently quick over a race distance, and indeed in the wet, I think subconsciously he's come back a little bit away from his natural driving limits, which provoke too many errors. And I think if he's clever, which he is, he's very sharp, the way he'll go to Ferrari and to take on Charles Leclerc is to think, I'm never going to out-qualify Leclerc, or if I do, it's going to be spasmodic. Focus on the race. Focus on what I've been doing over the last 12 months, which is to drive well over a consistent distance with a rhythm that works, given all the variables that come into play. And he'll be good at that because, as I say, he's not stupid at all. And that's how hopefully he will go into Ferrari. If he goes in thinking, my challenge is to out-qualify Charles and to show that I can beat him, then it'll end in tears. But I don't think he'll do that. I think he's too bright to do that. And therefore, he will be a very good counterpoint to Charles. And for Charles Leclerc, this is brilliant to have Carlos Sainz in the other car now instead of Sebastian Vettel. It's just like he'll wake up in the morning, the air will be fresh and crisp and clean, and he'll be able to build and mold the team around his own ethos now, and that's going to be great to watch. I'm not saying that Charles doesn't have faults at this stage of his career. Of course he does. And we've seen how irascible he can get and how emotional he can get. But these are things that are born of a driver who's had this not weird, it's the wrong word. He's had this very effervescent, perhaps is the right word, career so far. And if you go back to that last GP2 or F2 race that he drove on the Sunday morning in Abu Dhabi for Prema, and what he got away with there, running into Alex Albon and a million things that really should have resulted in a disqualification. He got away with it, and he got away with it because of his connections and because of who he is. And I think that's why when we got to Austria last year and he had that fracas with Max, that's why he did that. And I think he will have learned from that. Well, he has learned from that for sure. And he will be a very, very strong competitor now. Very, very impressive. And I think Ferrari will be a different team actually with Carlos in the other car. Very, very good. Good news, I think, for all Ferrari fans. The other big news, of course, Daniel Ricciardo. I'm sure deep down he was hoping he might have an opportunity at Ferrari, but as I've been saying all along, there is no way in the world Charles Leclerc was ever going to say, yeah, I'm happy to have Daniel in the other car, because Daniel is going to cramp his style in a way that, or would have cramped his style in a way that Carlos Sainz won't. Which brings me back to my other point that I made in the previous video about Sebastian, which is that, you know, for me, Daniel made a fundamental error to leave Red Bull when he did, because he still was able to beat Max with a couple of areas of his driving, particularly his racecraft. And he didn't allow that to happen, and he just went away. Well, anyway, let's look at Daniel as he is now. He's made his money, really, you could argue, from where he came from, what his aspirations were when he was starting as a racing driver. I'm sure he's exceeded all of those, except in the one area of winning a world championship. So he's got his money in the bank. He's made that decision to leave Red Bull, probably realized that in the long run it's better to be with a good team and a good car than it is to make money, particularly if that's all before you've even won a championship. And now he has a chance at McLaren. Definitely the right move for him. Definitely, if he's not going to go to Ferrari in the right circumstances. Great for McLaren as well. What a team. Lando Norris, Daniel Ricciardo, brilliant team. Lando, incredibly talented and very, very good. And Daniel Ricciardo. And what I like about both those guys is that they have a slightly lighter approach to racing and to life. And they haven't let the racing business and all this stuff about how seriously we have to take it and we're not allowed to do this, we're not allowed to do that, they haven't let that get to them, and they've retained their characters. I think McLaren have a great pair of drivers now. And just let's use the word lighter. I think Daniel has this amazing ability to be as good as he is and as aggressive as he is in traffic and as knife sharp as he is in traffic, but at the same time to keep this very light touch on his life and the way he goes about being a Formula One driver. And that is, you could say, isn't that a nice thing? We see him smiling and laughing in the paddock area. But no, but that manifests itself in more than that. That manifests itself in his ability just to reproduce what he does well when the pressure's on. And I think if you're a Ferrari driver now, and this will be a thing with Carlos Sainz, it's a very heavy thing to be driving for Ferrari. There's so much pressure. You could argue a little bit that it's like that at Mercedes. Not as much, but there's a little bit of that if you're Valtteri Bottas. But there is nothing heavy about the way Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo have got to go racing for McLaren. It's all going to be lots to prove, a great team that is growing organically with every passing day, and they will be really quick. Mercedes engines coming around the corner as well. So yeah, I mean, that's a great move for Daniel. He will, I predict that McLaren will win a Grand Prix with Mercedes power in their first year back with Mercedes power. Whether it'll be Lando or Daniel, that's another thing. That's the final point. I think that the battle, if that's the right word, between Daniel and Lando is going to be absolutely fascinating, because they are, I would say, almost equally talented. There's for sure things that Lando's going to learn from Daniel, and he's clever enough and sharp enough to learn from Daniel Ricciardo. But there are a couple of things that Daniel does that you just cannot pass on to anybody else, and that's his ability to look at situations and just make the most of them. I still think Daniel's best ever pass, and one of the most impressive things I've seen in recent times, was the 2014 US Grand Prix restart, safety car restart. And Daniel got a run on Alonso. It was Fernando's last year at Ferrari, and got him on the outside going into the quick section at the beginning after the downhill. They go through this very quick exit, and he got him on the outside there. That was unbelievably impressive. And tires weren't up to temperature, all the things that come into play. So you can't say at that point there was a massive inequality between the Red Bull and the Ferrari, and that was just a superb piece of driving, and I'm looking forward to seeing. And that's what Lando will be thinking. Wow, that's what I need to be doing. Not that Lando's not good in traffic anyway. I just think those two guys, it's a great team. It's a really, really good, really strong team. The other gap to be filled is that of Renault, so we'll watch this space. I haven't really got any thoughts on that. I don't know why. I guess I'm quite a big Esteban Ocon fan, because I think he is quite manipulative in the way he drives the car. He's got a lot of touch and feel. I don't think it would have been easy for Daniel to blow Ocon away had he stayed at Renault. And don't forget, Ocon is a Frenchman in a French team. Interesting to see where they go. Christian Lundgaard is a driver that's been very impressive in the junior ranks. He's moved up to Formula 2 this year, brilliant in Formula 3 last year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go for him, maybe. But there are plenty of others out there from which they could choose with their massive Renault academy. Anyway, congratulations to Carlos Sainz, and brilliant news for Daniel Ricciardo and McLaren as well.